All right, my name is Travis. This is Little Music Boxes, and this is a patch. This is a patch from a video that I published also recently called Momentum. Go check that out. What this video is a patch notes video. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at each of the segments here making noises, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I control them, what they're good for, and kind of everything. So just a quick review before we dive into it. We have mostly 4 parts that we're going to look into. There are 2 of them that are coming from this one module. This is the STS from 4MS. It's a sampler. So it's playing 2 different kind of things. One is that voice, which is actually Old Dirty Bastard and the Jizza from Wu-Tang. They did a freestyle back in the 90s together. It ended up on YouTube. I ended up stealing it. There we go. On this side, we have this. Let me just turn a few things off so you can really understand what we got going on here. You hear that guitar? Let me mute this trigger here. I'm going to show you how this works. So this is a guitar sample. It's, it's a melody on somebody playing acoustic guitar. And what I'm doing here is, let me unmute this track on the Steppy. This is triggering that sample, and as you can see, only allowing a limited part of the sample to play. And I've manipulated the start position knob here, not from the very beginning, because it doesn't really work. But I find it after the, like on the decay of a strike. It's much softer. And then towards the end of the bar, I have that little flick of, the guitarist. So I can do this. You can pitch it up and down the knob here. This is dangerous to do. I don't normally recommend messing with the pitch knob. But I found that I could pitch it up just a little bit and hopefully kind of get it, to go up a fifth or something like that. So basically this is that piece right here. This is the first voice of the song. It's a guitar sample that is just being chopped and triggered by Steppy and the STS right here. Very, very simple. But the nice thing is that if I mute that track on Steppy, the sample will still play through. And then when I'm ready to bring it back in, I can bring in the drums and it feels like a new moment. So this whole thing, I'm trying to get better at introducing and changing moments to build movement and momentum inside of the track or the sound. So that's the first sound right here. The second one, let's just jump over to the left side of the forum. Oh, I want to talk about actually what happens after it comes out of the STS. You'll notice this orange cable here travels all the way across the case and into the moon phase. This is awesome. I love the moon phase. I built this one at a DIY kit just the other month, and it's quickly becoming one of my very favorite modules. It is a stereo filter which has a stereo imager in it. See how it can really split to the left and right? There's different options here for how these left and rights are split, what filters they're using. Love it. And all these things are modulated by Øchd right here, who's just flipping around. I often take Øchd into this quad attenuator because this flipping thing is too intense, so I have to dial that modulation back down a little bit. So this one's being attenuated, being basically cut in half, the amplitude of that of the LFO coming from Øchd. You know what, I just realized I'm not even modulating this. I'm modulating it directly out of Øchd. We're getting a full cycle here of that triangle wave coming into the span right here, which is basically the span is is answering the question, how do these two filters in the stereo image relate to each other? Anyhow, this other thing out of Øchd, I just realized, is not going into the moon phase, which, you know, I love. Again, it creates this beautiful swirling sensation for this guitar sample. It's beautiful. I think one of my favorite modes is this one here, because it doesn't cut too much out, but you can still feel it. Crank up that resonance here. Okay, but the other thing coming out of the Øchd, which is being attenuated here, is going into the FXAid, which is the other side of the STS. So I have ODB and Jizza, as I said, giving us some lyrics from a freestyle that they put on YouTube. I'm running it through the FXAid right here, and it's in a tape delay mode. Let me turn the wet down. This is with no filtering. This is cool. You got sacked by a blitz of rhymes that were broken down stacks. Therefore, the mic was hyped, but then your hand got stripped while it's. So I'm going to cut the length down a little bit, maybe to half, so it just gives me a little line every now and then. Maybe a little more. So I don't want too much of it, because I don't want to be so obvious that they're not, you know, in tempo. But a lyric every now and then is pretty fun. And what this FX does, the FXAid, because it's on a tape delay and the delay is being modulated by the Øchd here, you can see it spinning up and down as that modulation comes in and out. And that really just takes the tempo worry kind of out of the equation, because it's obviously not in tempo. So I don't have to worry about them rhyming along with the beat. Speaking of the beat, let's bring it in. Okay, so what we have here, I'm going to talk now not about the 4MS STS at all. Let's switch over to the drums. Now, this is very rare for me, using Trigg from Pico Trigg here to drive the drums. Usually I don't. Usually I set all of these triggers from Pico Drums to be like, all of them are a 16th. For example, let me just, this is probably like the most often used mode. Having every trigger strike on Trigg, because I use it as a master clock. I just feed that clock to different modules and have them spinning out. But what I've done now is I have one clock coming out of Trigg, coming into the Varigate 4 Plus, which is driving the bass voice / melody voice over here, and also this secondary drum. So I'm gonna unplug the bass so that you don't hear it, but oops, let's start this secondary drum and then silence these drums. So this is kind of like the alternate drum or the backup drum, just like weird percussion. The thing is, Varigate, and this is a Future Retro Transient Plus, they're a good team, but the problem is they can be a little crazy. So let me turn off the, what's cool is that this one actually has a filter built into it, so I can bring it in or out using this knob here. But if I bring that filter all the way in, you can see that this module's a little weird. Let me show you what I mean. So the reason it's going weird and wild is because, you know, it's being sent triggers and modulation from Varigate, which can be kind of wieldy and crazy too. But the Transient loves that craziness. You just got to dial it down a little bit. Let me put recall on here to track 1. I think it was a little bit more chill. There's a video that I made called Covenant where I am using the Varigate to drive all 4 of the drum sounds. That's kick, snare, and 2 hats. And it's really fun. You can get a lot done with this thing. But when you just want some craziness, these 2 are a great pair. Sometimes they're a little unpredictable. But when you bring in the main drums, that all just becomes excitement. You have to balance the predictable with the unpredictable. Trigg here is giving us 4 triggers out, bass drum, snare drum, and then 2 hats. And they are, the sound is coming from the Pico Drums. So it's Pico Trigg and Pico Drums. They're just, basically built for each other. I usually am using the 4 bricks Rook to drive the drums, most commonly, but I don't want to limit it, Use the Varigate, use the Trigg, use the 4 bricks. Heck, use the Steppy. It doesn't matter. Use whatever you like. Use cells. But the point is, right now, I kind of stepped away from 4 bricks, which I'm very comfortable with and use most of the time, and I'm using Trigg. So this is a weird one for me. Every time I do a patch, I try to step outside of what I've done before and flex the relationships between the modules. That's, for me, the most fun. Okay, so we've talked about the 2 voices over on the 4MS STS. Talked about those 2. Next I want to talk about Pico Voice and 2HP LPF. So I pair these up often. They're very small. They're one of my first, synth voices. Very small, and they pack a punch. I'm going to be driving the triggering of the Pico Voice, and it's in pulse width mode or square wave mode right here on channel 2. So you can see it coming through here. Let me tell you about the signal chain here. We got Trigg coming through and giving us a clock. I'm taking the clock out to Steppy, by the way, which is, as I showed earlier, giving us the sampled guitar. But this bass, this little wah-wah, which started out as a bass and then it became something else. Let me make that reverb wet. Or sorry, take the wetness of the reverb down. So you can hear it. I'm going to take that filter completely off. As you can see here, it's just a square wave that I'm modulating the pulse with right here with my hand. Now the Pico and the LPF from 2HP are so small. I make a joke in the video that their knobs are made for ants, which is a Zoolander reference. You kids may not know that. I like the way the square wave can get really thin on the edges, like that. Anyhow, I didn't really use that very much to drive the melody, and this is just one note. I can actually, it's hooked up through the Vox Digital, so I can change the note. But I think the whole song I stayed on E. I have no idea. But what I am doing here elsewise is a little interesting. So I was turning up the resonance of this filter way high, and so it becomes into audible range, right? Cranking up that resonance. Now, if I turn up that reverb again, get really spacey. It's kind of fun. But that's not even the pulse width coming from the VCO, or sorry, the voice. It's coming from the filter itself. It's self-resonating. And if I take this CV from the Varigate, just giving like crazy, modulation, and put it into the frequency control, you can see that it is you know, making that audible range of the resonance become playable with a kind of melody. And I can set the root note here with the frequency of the filter. So it's very strange, very weird, but I like it. And then as soon as I turn that resonance down, I'm back to my square wave little bass line, like a little doot doot. I wouldn't call it a bass line at this point. It started out as a bass line, but that's how these things work. You just kind of start them and then they just go places. You know, I never even used the RPAR in that thing, but I have it hooked up. I have it wired up through the clouds, and it was like this really fun thing. I was using the microphone on it, turning up the input, capturing that, in clouds. So it can be kind of a nice little texture here. I was getting my face up close and whispering words in there. These things are too much. These are not even in the video, so they shouldn't even be in the patch notes. But the point is, okay, so let's go back to this square wave. I'm taking it obviously through this MultiFX unit here in reverb mode. Let me switch it to delay. Give it a little tap tempo. Nice. I think that's kind of it. That's like mostly the whole thing. And then again, it's just bringing elements in and out, right? So like I've got this mixer here, which I usually plug most of my drums into, and it has a quick mute. Love a quick mute. Yeah. Well, that's the patch notes, everybody. There we go. All right. I want to dig more into that. It's a lot of fun that there's a microphone right on the module, a contact microphone. There's tons of modules on this case that I'm not using in this moment. I think one that I want to highlight here is this one here. I'm so sad, but I'm gonna have to take it out of the case soon because I'm running out of space. As you can see, we're at the limit. There's a few things I'm not using, but this one's so fun. It's just a visualizer, so I just send my drum sounds into it, and it's just like, oh yeah, it just makes you feel. Because I think the modular, I think the modular experience, you know, in terms of what is it like to play and I think it's very, very important to consider the aesthetics as you play. After all, I don't think anybody who ever saw a Eurorack, you know, kit case set up and somebody playing it the first time ever knew what the heck was going on. And that's kind of the allure, because it's more of like a discovery situation where I'm trying to understand what it is I see, understand what other people are doing, and also create a performance that not only sounds interesting, but the aesthetics are there, that it looks interesting, that you can feel that there's thought between. And a module like this, where it doesn't give you any sound and it only gives you visual feedback about what other modules are doing, like this and this, the O'Toole as well. Some of the most important modules in the case, because they give you a visceral experience, a visual experience. And they complete the idea. They make you feel the electricity pulsing through this case. in a way, they're one of the most important modules in this case. Although I am sad because I probably will have to get rid of it soon. Put something else in there. Anyhow, the other thing is that these compositions, these songs, these explorations into sound may or may not sound great. You know, like a song. But I think more than that, they're an exploration in the relationships of ideas. Can I take one thing that I'm very comfortable with and introduce it to something else in a new way? Create a discomfort, if you will, that will lead you to a new sonic landscapes, I guess is how we want to say that. Anyway, this is Little Music Boxes. I'm Travis. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe. If you want me to talk about any of these specific modules and go deep on them, leave a comment on which one you would prefer to learn more about. I'm really excited to talk about them. I'd like to hear what you think. Thanks for joining me. Take care.